All right, so now we're ready to add some objects to our model. So we're going to look at adding some trees and cars and people from our Lumion collections. But of course, first we need to talk about our layers. So if I'm on the Objects tab over here on the bottom left corner of my screen, then my layers become visible up at the top. So the way that layers work in Lumion is that if the eyeball is white, its geometry is visible. If it's got the red X through it, it's invisible. So very similar to a lot of 3D modeling programs, layers simply control the visibility of geometry. That is the way it works in Lumion. Now, by default, layer 1 is active to when you start a new scene. So what I typically do is I create 6 default layers. We have imported models, landscape elements, 2D people, 3D people, entourage, and lighting. So let's go through and set up our layers to reflect that list I just read off. So layer number 1, all I need to do to rename it is click on the number 1 and then highlight the text, and we're going to call this imported models. Now, I don't even have to tab or enter or escape out of there. I just click on the number 2, select the text, and we're going to call this one landscape elements. Again, I click on the number 3, kind of click it twice. Select my text, and we're going to call this one 2D people. The next one, we'll call this 3D people. Layer number 5 is going to be called entourage. And then we need to create a 6th layer. So pretty intuitive, that plus sign there. I click on that. Layer number 6, we're going to call that lighting. Very good. Okay, so we have our layers all set up, and it is important to be aware of which layer is current. So up till now we've been working on layer 1. We're in good shape. So let's just start working. We'll continue working on layer 1 as we add our trees, and we're going to kind of make a common mistake on purpose, and then I'll show you how to switch your trees to that layer. So let's just we'll leave layer 1 active, and let's just go in here to our Objects tab and our Nature collection. I find that the most important collections in Lumion are Nature, Transportation, and People. Lots of other good stuff. I suppose lights as well. That's important. But lots of the other stuff, I like to grab off of sites like Form Fonts, like any of the interior objects and furniture and even people. I grab that stuff off that Form Fonts. And I'll show you that website in just a moment, how to really make the most out of it in Lumion. So anyway, we're going to go into our Nature library, and to change the object that we are placing, you click on this thumbnail. When I click on that thumbnail, it brings up our Nature library, and you can see we have these major tabs and then the minor tabs. So we've got leaf small, medium, large, pine, and palm. And if I go back and look at that, each one of these tabs has subtabs. So we have a ton of content in here. So you can always search your content. We could type in like, let's try oak. So we got a bunch of oak trees. Let's just grab one of those. I'll grab this big one, English oak. I click on it, and now I can go in here and place it. So I can just click and just maybe throw some back here. I like to build kind of a backdrop so that I'm not seeing the horizon line. So this way, when I'm down here kind of rendering it, I don't want to see that horizon line. So that's what I'm getting at here is just dropping some trees in. We could drop some over here on this street too. That way, wherever I'm looking, we're going to have a nice full rendering. And maybe over here too. If I hold Control, it'll drop several trees at a time. So that's kind of a slick feature. And we can always change up the object that we're working on. If I go in here to change my object, I can then choose like a different oak tree. So I'll click on this one. And now I go back and I start adding those. So there's some more oak trees. And again, if I hold Control, we get a little grouping in there, a little grouping there. So, you can be more careful than I'm being, but really for the rendering, I know that I'm going to be taking some snapshots from about right here. and I just want it to look nice and full, and I don't want to see the horizon line. So maybe I'll even come back over here, hold Control, drop some more back there. So you notice too that all the trees in Lumion, they're pre-animated. This one, it's kind of blowing in the breeze. It's totally optimized for rendering, and they're just so lightweight, and you can see I'm still moving around real fast even though I'm dropping all these trees in. Alright, so maybe just one more tree, and we'll just throw a few of these guys in just to say we did it. Alright, so there's a handful of those. And alright, so if like there I just kind of accidentally dropped too many, I'm going to hit the Trash Object button. And now I can just click on their nodes to delete them. So you just click on the trash can and then click on these nodes to get rid of them. No problem. Alright, and then to go back to place mode, I click on this place object button down here, and now I'm back to adding individual objects. Alright, let me scoot around here and yeah, maybe add a few more back behind. Alright, looking good. Okay, so there's our trees. Now, as mentioned, I kind of made a mistake. I did not make my landscape elements layer active. So now all of my trees are on the imported models layer. So what we're going to do is go to the context menu. I click on that, and then you'll notice that I can hover on any one of these nodes and click, go to selection, and I'm going to choose select all similar category. That means it's going to select all of my nature library elements. Now all I have to do is click on layer 2, and then see this little arrow right here. When I click on that, when I hover on it, it says move selection to layer. I click on that, problem solved. Now my trees are controlled by the landscape elements, and my model is controlled by imported models. Cool. Alright, so now we're good to go there. Alright, so let's our current layer is our landscape elements, so I want to add a few more landscape elements. I want to do a mass placement right here along this planting bed. So to do that, I'm going to click on the mass placement tool. That's this little diagonal line down here. Now the first thing I do is draw a path. I'll click from here, click once there, and then click once on the end. Now notice that it's filling in that path with, different number of items. I can click on these sliders, click and drag on these sliders, and if I click on this thumbnail here, it's going to trash that object. I don't want to use trees. What I want to do, and I want to clear my search, so I'll click on that clear, that little X that was up there, and I'm going to go to flowers. I just want to plant flowers in here, so we'll go with African Daisy Pink. Let's add, oops, I deleted that one, well, African Daisy, and then click on the plus sign, and we're going to add another object. Click on the plus sign, we'll add this object. So I think just flowers there is probably going to be good enough. Alright, so we need to increase the number of items. I'll click and drag on this slider, and that's going to start to fill in a bit. Also, I want to randomize my direction. I want to randomize my spacing a little bit. And then I want to change the offset. I want to kind of get those things not quite so perfect. And let's add some more objects. Alright, so something like that. I mean, that's pretty close. That looks nice and full. I'll just click on the checkbox to say OK. And now all of those objects have been placed. So I can't go back and edit that that mass placement that I just did. I would need to actually delete these items or edit them. So here I've got the move tool active, and I just click and drag on that node to kind of back it off of the curb. Now let's do another mass placement. So you want to navigate to that view that is strategic for what you're working on. I'll click on the mass placement tool, and then I'll click once over here and click once at the end, and then I might just dial down the number of objects. That looks pretty good to me. It's using the exact same library selection, so I'll say OK. Tap escape to kind of get out of that placement mode, and now we've placed our flowers in there. So that's looking pretty good. And we can go up here and turn our landscape elements on and off very easily. The layering really comes into play if you have a large scene. So if you have forests in the background and then detailed landscape elements in the foreground, it's good to maybe have a couple of landscape layers. But for our basic projects, this is how we set it up. Okay, so now what else do we need? We need to set up some people. So we're going to add some people in here, and we want to add 2D people and we want to add 3D people. So let's go to our 3D people layer. That's layer number 4 if you're following along. I'll click on layer number 4. That's 3D people. It's active. And I'm going to go into my people and animals library. So I click on that little guy walking down there. And now I can click on the thumbnail to choose the object. Now for 3D people, I'm going to go over here to the first one, and you've got people who are walking, people who are sitting. And so maybe I'll grab the guy in the suit, click once, and then click once to place him. Now once he's placed, I can hold the R key. When I hold the R key, I get this rotate tool. So I can kind of move him around, go back to my objects, and maybe choose another gentleman in a suit who's idle. So yeah, this guy's idle. We'll put him in there and click to place him. And actually he's kind of in good shape, but really if you just hold R, you can click and drag on that node and you can kind of make them face each other. Very good. All right, so now we also have some people who are sitting, so I can grab like, this guy, we'll just throw him on this bench. So I just click on the bench, hold the R key again, and now I can kind of orient him where I want him. I could use the move tool. That allows me to kind of scoot him around on that bench. And you always want to navigate to that view that is strategic for what you're working on. But that one's looking pretty good. That guy looks good. Okay, so now let's go with, we'll go into our women. You've got 3D men, women, boys and girls, and pets. So we'll just go to our women, and let's add, we'll grab the woman walking, and I'll just drop her over there at that end. And hold R. You can always, face her that way. And we can add another woman walking. We'll go to our next collection. So I think maybe something like this. All right. So keep in mind, the reason that we're using 3D people and 2D people and separating them on layers is because 3D people are perfect for animation. We want them to be kind of talking to each other and standing around, hanging out. Whereas for photorealistic stills, we want to use a photo cutout of a person. And that's going to give us the most photorealism. So kind of leveraging the right tool for the job. 3D people for animation, 2D people for photorealistic stills, and then we're organizing it using our layers. So we've got all of our 3D people on there, looking good. All right, so we're not going to go too crazy on adding people. And so we're in good shape there. So let's turn off our 3D people, make our 2D people layer active. And that's layer number 3. So now I can go back to my people collection or library. And at the end here, you've got people 2D high detail and low detail. I never even mess with the low detail. I always want high detail. Just seems like the right way to go. So I just click on an object and click to place. Add another object. We can just put her walking kind of back there and change the object. And we'll have this lady walking towards the front door. So notice that these people are, they're like follow me or I'm sorry, face me components in SketchUp. She's always going to face the camera. So that means that any camera position that you choose, you'll always get those nice 2D cutout people placed. They'll never look like they're flat 2D cutouts. Now, there is this website I mentioned that is formfonts.com. This is a great spot to grab all kinds of resources, whether it's textures, texture images, or pre-built SketchUp models. But you can type in photo people, I think it is. Yep, there's a handful, and then the other is you can type in PR people, so that's photo real people. And let's see what that brings up. So there's a bunch of those. So it's really easy to click on one of these thumbnails. I'm not signed in right now, but you just click on download. You download that SketchUp model, and now you own it. So now you're able to import it. Well, the good news is in your tutorial files, I have included some of these form fonts people. So let me show you how you can add your own people into this model. So right now we're on the 2D people layer, and I'm going to go to import just like we did in the beginning, and I'm going to click on add a new model. Now you can see here in your Clayton GastroPub folder under components, we've got these different form fonts people. Now I'm going to select this first one, which is number 99. I'll choose open. Now on my machine, it's telling me that this already exists because I've already imported this once. So I'm just going to give it a random new name, and just so I can follow through with the process, click here and click to place it. Now there she is. Now let's add another one. We'll go with 100. Same thing. I just need to give it a different name. And I'll scoot down here and click. And then we'll add one more. We've given you 3 of them. And say OK. All right, so now here's the thing about these people is that these are not face me components. See how they're flat? So what I need to do is make this a billboard material. This is simply just a SketchUp model imported into Lumion, and all I need to do is go to my materials, hover on the person, and click. It brings up my custom material library, and what we want to do is assign a billboard material. Now, when I do that, check out what happens. See how she's always turning to face me. So just because we don't have a super extensive library of people in Lumion for the 2D high-res people, it's very easy to grab these people. All I have to do, I haven't clicked save yet in the bottom right corner. I'm just going to click on this guy and click on billboard. He's done. Click on this woman, click on billboard, and now she's done. So it's really an easy process to add your own people and get that photorealistic effect. So that's all looking good. I'll click on the checkbox to say save. And now let's see, where are we headed? We're going to do a mass placement of cars. So let's go up to our layers. I'm going to go back to my objects tab, and I want to set up. You can see that we've got our 3D people, our 2D people. We could go to our entourage. That's where we're going to put our cars. And then in a future tutorial is when we're actually going to do lighting. So let's do our cars, and that'll end this one. So to add cars, let's just add one car over here to this kind of loaner parking space. I'll go to my collections on transportation. I want to change the object. Same process every time. Now I'm going to go with a sports car, and I'll just click on this one. Looks pretty racy, and then I'll just click once to place it. Now to rotate this thing, just like any other object, I hold R and click and drag on the node, and it'll kind of snap into place. By default, you're on the move tool, so I can easily kind of scoot this thing around and move it. So there's a sports car parked in that front spot, backed in, looking good. But what happens if we have like a big parking lot? If I want to add in all these cars here, well, this is where it's good to do a mass placement. So I'll click on my mass placement tool, and same process, just like we did for the flowers. I click once in the middle of this spot, go all the way down to the end, and click on the middle of this spot. Now, we've got this one sports car, or this one car selected, so we want to add some other cars because we don't want the same car parked over and over. So what I can do is click on the plus sign, and maybe I'll grab this other car. Click on the plus sign. Let's go down the line. Let's choose an SUV. So click on that tab. I'll grab this second one in, and maybe the truck, and maybe this one. All right, now I'll click on the plus sign again, and let's see, we've got vans as well. So you can always throw like a little van in there too. Why not? Let's see, what else do we have? We have just cars, regular cars. So this is really much more typical of what you'd see in a parking lot. So I'll just grab a few of those as well. You click on the plus sign, click on the object. Now I'm going to change the direction, so I can slide the direction to change that up like that. And then I can adjust the number of items until they fit my spots perfectly. That looks good. So now to finish that mass placement, I just click once here, and now they're in. Now this one truck, I think I might want to just move that. So I'll go to my move object and just kind of scoot it forward so it's not up on my sidewalk that way. All right, so then I'll scoot over here, and I'll just do one more mass placement. I click on my mass placement tool here, click in the middle of the spot, and click once there, and then reduce the number of items until we see 3. And then we're good. Now, if you decided that you wanted a couple of these to be backed in, a couple of them to be nosed in, you can hold R. Sorry, we'll go over to our move tool. I always just kind of default to that move tool. Hold R on the keyboard, and now you can switch these things around real easy. Like that. And, again, a strategic view might be up here. I'd hold R and just kind of flip a few of these guys around like that. So that looks pretty good. All right. So that is how we get all of our layers set up in Lumion and all of our entourage. And you can see it's a pretty quick process. I mean, the program runs extremely fast, and you have an extensive library, so it's very much drag and drop. Let's get our people on too. So stay tuned. Jump in on the next tutorial, and we'll keep this thing moving forward and start. I think we're going to add some lights next, and then we will produce our presentation.